Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. This is Arushi Uppal, your host and your host. And here on Autonomy by Arushi, we welcome our special guest, Sagnik Dey, who's a seasoned product leader, a community builder, and the founder of the Roundtable, where bold ideas meet real human connection. He has professional experience spanning across Apple, Samsung, and Yahoo, and he combines his deep product thinking with heart led execution. From building uh, enterprise logistic platforms to hosting founder circles over chai, he's all about designing for impact and belonging. And today, he's doing something very bold. He's going to solve a live product challenge with us. He will think aloud, weigh trade offs, and show how an experienced PM navigates tough decisions under constraints. And this isn't mere theory or framework, it is a front row seat for all you viewers into real world product thinking in action. So, welcome, Sagnik, on this channel. Thank you so much, Sagnik, for doing this for us.
No, thank you for inviting me and considering me to be on your channel. So I really appreciate that.
Perfect. So let's get started. So, to give you a little bit of context, today's product challenge is about a hypothetical fitness app called Fit8. Think of Fit8 as, an app where users can track their workouts, sleep, and nutrition. And recently, they just launched a social feed feature where now users can basically post their workouts, cheer on friends, and join fitness challenges. But what they noticed was that after a month of launch, the user retention dropped by 20%. The support tickets on the app platform doubled, and the most complaints were about confusing navigation and unclear privacy settings. While at this time for the team, the engineering is maxed out and the data analytics is a bit slow. We just get some weekly updates. And well, the CEO is watching the retention like a hawk because the next round of funding for the company depends on it. All right, so let's say, Sagnik, this lands on your desk first thing Monday morning. Where would you start digging in to understand this drop?
I think first I would get some energy, so either get myself a coffee or a Red Bull, which I
Mhm,
primarily go for. Then I would like to see that when it says, when the retention is dropped, what was the retention and what is the drop?
mhm,
Okay, and when you when this product was launched, I'm assuming it might have been 2, 3 weeks. I would go into each day to figure
mhm,
out, okay, where I'm seeing the drop. We're able to understand is a D7. Basically go on, I'd open Confluence,
mhm,
okay, create a table, and just have a data of like, if today is D30, day 30 of when it was, the issue has come, go
mhm,
D29, 28, 27, just create a flow of seeing where the drop is happening,
mhm,
right? And then if I was spearheading this product, I would go to the PRD to understand what is the baseline of the
mhm,
launch. What were we expecting? We have what we call, what is the metric? What was our North Star metric? Was it like 60%, 70% of user engagement when we
mhm,
released this feature, the social feed? And then I would try to find out what was the correlation between when the usage started happening and the churn rate. Like
mhm,
when does in a day the user picks up, when is it dropping? Based on that, I'll be able to go ahead and figure out where it is that this is happening. And when you think, when first time I got this Fit 8, it reminded of Whoop. I use Whoop myself,
mhm,
or like Apple Fitness. I would see what is the competition also done. So when internally I'm trying to figure out
mhm.
that, understand the definition of a retention drop, as well as also figure out what is the competitive is doing it, the competition. In top of my
Right.
head, which I mentioned was Whoop, Fitbit, or Apple Tracker. Have they done something which is more appealing
Mm,
than Fit 8? That's why people are going there. So, and this all should be in my PRD where a competitive analysis is done. What
mhm,
is the competition doing? Number one. And number two is that whenever we release a feature, we expect, okay, what is a success? I would
mhm.
look at that baseline.
Got it.
That's something I
So,
would go with.
perfect. Thank you so much for kind of painting what are the different areas where the
Hmm.
friction could arise. So, what I understand from what you said, there are a few possible sources of friction. First, we need to really understand what did this product team do versus what the other competition do, and how does it differ? And, more like how we think in A/B testing, which version is better, working
Mm.
better. And the second possible source of friction you mentioned was that probably the team deviated from the original metric and the original vision of it, right? So now that you've given us a little bit about how you would approach the problem overall, where would you start? Do you think you would start with looking at the data, or, doing some user testing to understand the user flow? Do you think it's a UX issue, or like how would you kind of now help us go deep dive and, go step by step of where would you start and what would you leverage?
So in step one, I defined, my goal was to define with the retention dip,
Mm-hmm,
what is the exact dip.
mm-hmm,
And when you said, me going to the user flow and the user journey,
mm-hmm,
one thing I would do is, and this is a very practical experience I've had,
mm-hmm,
what you develop and what you test, let's say the
mm-hmm,
QA team or testing, what is
mm-hmm,
deployed, there can be a difference.
mm-hmm,
So now when I have this done, I would like to see is that what we visioned and
mm-hmm,
what we developed, and especially in the user testing, has the flows gone correctly? Is
mm-hmm,
there a break in the system when, let's say, two systems are talking to each other, or let's say someone's posting something in social feed, something is breaking? That's one thing I would do.
mm-hmm,
Step one. And parallelly, I would look more into the data, right? When we say there's a drop, is it, who are the users? Is it new signups post launch,
mm-hmm,
or is it existing users? That will again give me like a mind map on what would be the next step. Is if it's new users, I would understand what was their expectation, where they're coming from,
mm-hmm,
right? If it's an existing user, that means they have been using a platform. What changed, right? Which caused
mm-hmm,
them to have the retention drop. Then also, out of 100 users, let's take the example for over here, there's 100 users, right? I would say,
right.
what is engagement? Like, who uses the social media? Is it
Mm-hmm,
80%? That means out of
mm-hmm,
100 users in my platform, 80 are using the social media. Who doesn't?
mm-hmm,
Then from that, there I can figure out what is happening. And in the social aspect, I would also look at, in my head, the social community platform is one segment where
right.
the chat is, right, where we share, but there is workout, sleep tracking, nutrition logs.
Mm-hmm,
Is there a drop in there also?
mm.
Then it's affecting my whole platform versus a particular segment.
Right. I think you brought a very nice point about understanding different user segments and which user segment is dropping at which area. Could you give us a hypothetical example of, let's say you decide you find out that the new user segment is dropping. Now, once you understand that by data, what do you do next? Like now, what kind of data would you pull to understand what exactly is happening, why the new user is dropping out, and how would you kind of understand that drop? And then how would you delegate certain tasks to your team to help you solve this out?
So if new signups are dropping, I would look at, is it iOS and Android? Who are the users that can affect uh, because let's say if it's a US market, maybe iOS is more friendlier than Android. Is
Mm-hmm.
something breaking in different platforms? We know that even as something as basic in cars, you have like CarPlay and Androids.
Mm-hmm.
They both have different, when it connects to the car, it has different, the way it's displayed. So is it from platform base? Then also the new users, who are they? What is their demographic? What is their
Mm-hmm.
age? Once I get those two data, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say it's iOS or if it's Android, a certain age, then I would try to understand. I would do more market research. Is what is their expectation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then I'll be like, okay, the new users have come up. I would
Mm-hmm.
then basically, I'm building a user persona. I'm just trying to figure out
Okay.
a user persona, that this
Mm-hmm.
is a user persona, their age, let's say the millenniums or like Gen Zs,
Mm-hmm.
excuse my lingo, but then
Mm-hmm.
what is something new to them? What is, let's say, maybe for them, it's social, can be more posting, more live feeds, where an older age group would look at community. So then that would give me, once I figure the platform, region, and age, that what is the feature capability. One more thing I would do is, and it's something I do this, it sounds very silly, is that when there's something new coming out, right? These new like Boomerang is something I took time to understand in Instagram. I would
Mhm.
ask someone in my team who's younger, like, okay, how would you use it? If
Mhm.
you're a blank user, how would you use it to bring this and you using social feed?
Mm.
And how does it go? I would use something. I do use Instagram. I do use Facebook. Maybe I took reference from that, but that might not be the trick. What is today? TikTok is more in trend. So I would try to see that. Okay, what is that? Once I figure out the age and the region, then I would go ahead and like, okay, this is something a new capability which is required, and I'd be
Mm.
okay if it's new users, because then if it's news, I would check are they using my core features.
Mm.
Then if they're happy with the core feature, then I'd be like, okay, I need to figure out on the social feed that this might take me a bit more time, which might not be possible on Monday, but I would definitely do a user testing with that demographic.
Mhm.
Something I saw on Yahoo, they used to do, they used to bring people, they
Mhm.
used to give them the app, record their voice, their facial expression. I would do something like
Mm.
that. If they give me a $10 Amazon gift card or whatever it is, get
Mhm.
in my team and also do a competitive analysis who uses that particular age group. Like for
Mm.
example, today Facebook is used for an older generation. The younger generation don't use Facebook. Marketplace is more popular. So I would need to understand what is happening in the trend. That's how I would go and dig in deeper.
Right. I think that's a very interesting approach, to summarize this particular aspect of the episode for the users or the viewers. Basically, you try to say is that when we have a bigger problem, what I learned from your thinking right now was that you kind of isolated different variables. So, can I understand what demographic is the more probable of churning out? Understanding the demographic, now you go into, okay, were they new or old? Okay, if they were new, let me first test with my own teammates, who are in the similar demographic to kind of see what's happening. And then you take a, primary feedback from another set of actual users, right? So it's more like isolating the problem and understanding what variables work, what don't work, and then kind of trying to narrow down to come to a solution. Would you say
Y-
that's
yes. And one more thing I would do, it's a bit harder. Like, and it might not be
Mhm.
Monday, is create an NPS questionnaire or data questionnaire, send it to the new users.
Mm-hmm.
That if you answer this, what is the issue? Why aren't you
Mm,
using it? That is the best feedback you can get. I know due
mm,
to privacy, I can just call them and say, hey, I'm seeing this, why aren't you using it?
mm,
That's a big no-no. But in the app itself, can you do a pop-up asking
mm,
a question that
mm.
what is the feedback? That might be a bit step 2 or step 3, because that
Right.
I'm waiting for to build something to get the consumer out,
Mm,
get the consumer data rather, sorry, and build this whole like pop-up or email communications.
mhm,
But initially, step 1 I would do. Step 2, I would understand the customer, why aren't you using it,
mm,
and what is the feedback. And if it's a social feed, and now I'm going very V3 V4 would be is like, if can I chat with them, can they be a chat
mm,
communication, I'm directly chatting with them, like
mm.
a chatbot comes in that like Whoop does as something, that you communicate with them and you get their feedback. So can I do something that again, but that's a building a feature and capability. Like
Mhm.
I said, that's a V3. V1 is what I told you. V2 would be is that email communication get from customer, and V3 would be like, can I build a chat and communicate with them.
Got it. That's interesting. And then you spoke a little bit about NPS score and creating your own questionnaires.
Hmm.
As a standard practice, do you use the general NPS standard questionnaires available online? Do you build for the specific product? If you build it, how do you build? How do you decide what questions should be? And then, as a seasoned product manager, why do you think NPS score is an important metric? Like, to just give some insight into people who are early in their PM career, how can they leverage and understand NPS score?
So as a basic thing, right? Like I don't think PMA is very complicated. It's basically you're finding a solution, right? And I think PM
Mm-hmm.
thinking you can use everywhere. If tomorrow you buy something,
Mm-hmm.
your NPS score determines are you going to use it or not. That
Mm.
is a very standard thing. So if I, let's say, buy a phone or even buy a car or buy something as small as a charger, the how good is it? We see the reviews in
Mm.
Amazon. The reviews play a huge part. So the NPS score gives you the understanding is that A, is it a success, something you have built. B, that you want to spend more time building multiple versions on it. That's why NPS score is really good. Now going back to the other question you asked is usually each feature or each organization, I would say build your own standard question. Don't you can use other tools to which can generate you like you can Google form, I think one of them, quite a few of them are out there. You can use that, but use your own set of questions. And as a product manager, you build with it, but you also speak with the design team or across your team, like, hey, what are the questions which might be something we need to ask the customer that
Hmm.
this is one of your pain points.
Got it. And are there ways to kind of validate this questionnaire within the team, or do PMs kind of take end-to-end ownership of building these questionnaires and testing it out with real users? Like, is there a validation mechanism in place?
So it goes. I think if you're the funds, you can set a validation team that I'll be honest with you, like you work in the big tech companies, they'll be like, yeah, dude, we have the question and don't worry about it. But
Mm,
as a small team, you are responsible end to end, and it is
mm,
up to you to discuss with it. Like when I worked in startups, everything falls on you. So then it would be on me that I do take online reference, I do take competitive reference, I do take other teams member reference, build something, validate with it, and go for it. And I think the sweet spot for whenever you're doing it, don't ask too many questions. Don't make it like a 20 where people are like, okay, I'm bored. Find the sweet spot. I would say anywhere between 5 to 8 questions is a nice sweet spot.
mm. Got it. That's very interesting take. And then could you give us like one or two questions you would frame for this specific situation where there's this fitness app and a social feature, and you see a lot of user retention drop? And let's make it more concrete. Let's say it's with the new users. It's been the feature was launched, let's say 4 weeks ago, and the drop you see is from 3 weeks ago. And the demographic you can say is anywhere between 18 to 35. And the issue is mostly people find the whole navigation process very, kind of confusing. So if these are the constraints, what are the questions you would ask the user to kind of, dig deep into
So
finding?
I think before I said the question, you answered one thing is if they find it confusing, I have to unconfuse it. And I
Mm,
think it's how do you keep the one of the most basic things I've seen is less clicks, the better it is. The more
very
you clicks
interesting.
you do, the
Mm,
more that's a friction point. I'll
mm,
give you an example in my previous experience. When Apple built its checkout page,
mhm,
they had something called compare page where you had to click on it and it takes you a different page where you can compare phones. Now they built everything in a single page because
mm,
the moment you compare, you have a chance of a drop rate. The more friction is, the more dropping. So from a navigation
very
perspective, I would
interesting
always
insight.
make sure that less friction is there. The questions I would ask is that um, top of my head, number one would be is that uh, how can this app, the social feed, add value to you? Right?
Mm,
What would your feedback be? And I would not ask a multiple question. I would put a feedback and minimum 100 words.
mm,
Right? That would be number one. Number two is what previous fitness were you using? I'd give a list, and if it's something new, I would like to know is that where is my competitor coming from? That
mhm,
means they're more used to that behavior. So
mm,
can I replicate that in my? If it's new, then it's okay. Then that's
mm,
different. And top of my head, I would say third would be is that um, how do you think that this social feed can be better, or what other
mm,
features do you want? I would ask you that. What other value propositions would you want?
very
Right. So basic.
interesting.
So first one is that what improvements or what you think of it. Second is your previous experience, and third is the future aspect. Is like okay, what is something you want? If you notice that whenever iOS have been the new iOS comes out, they always try to like you hear reviews saying, "Oh, they finally took our feedback and did this feature." So I would like to get the consumer feedback. And top of my three, this thing I would do it. I would definitely polish it better and define it better. But
Yeah.
top of my this three, was the first ones came in.
Got it. Very interesting. And then, to take some insight on this. So when you say like 100-word minimum feedback, in your experience, do you feel users really want the product to be improved, but do not take the time and the tediousness of writing the feedback down? How do you encourage your users like
I have
to
to,
kind of actually
I have to give incentive.
have to give incentive?
I would give incentive. I would say you fill this up, we would give you 10% off in your next subscription.
Mm,
It
okay.
has to be incentive. Otherwise, you'd be like, Because think about it, whenever, I don't know, in America, you would have done, or your audience had, they call a customer service, they're like, hey, are you okay to give a feedback after this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's no incentives, and you'll be
Nobody
like,
does it.
oh, no, nobody would do it,
Yeah, that's a
right?
very fair point. Got it. And then let's switch gears. So let's say,
Hmm,
the approach that you described was very tactical and strategic,
hmm,
but when PMs are doing their work, often the senior management is like, we want to see progress day by day or week
hmm.
by week. They are not kind of waiting on for so long to see progress. So let's say you've just got this week, 5 days to show some progress. What is the quickest win you think you can bring to the table? And then what is that one thing you'd communicate to the leadership today about this? Like, how would you communicate? And then what is the quickest win you can show to the leadership?
I think communication is very important, but I think first thing I would communicate to the user that this is actually not something where we are looking to, it's on a bug fix. It might be a product market fit correction.
Mm,
It's not a bug
okay.
fix. So this is not like, oh, only giving happen where I deploy the code and happens, right? If you're telling me you're losing a new capability, that means the market or product which I wanted to do, it didn't go through.
Mm,
What I would do is that based on my first time when I answer the question, right, whatever the analysis I have done, figured out from which week it's breaking, and once I, from the data team, I would get the user type. So let me take a step back. If it was, I would first, if you mentioned that the data team is limited, I would say whatever they're doing has to stop.
mm.
I need
Okay.
resources.
That's a hot take. Okay.
No, that is reality, because times and scope, like you can't be doing scope and then the time reduces, right?
Mm,
So my thing is that can I go ahead and ask that it's here, the whoever my leadership is, that I need more data team to do it, and only reason I need data team is because I have leadership looks at numbers. They don't care of like what capability, and like no one cares. So is that I have to show that each, when we lose a percentage of a drop, what is the value we're losing? We're losing user engagement, or we're users are dropping or not signing up. Also have to understand in today's world that good or bad products spread very easily, like
mm,
it be via social media, whatever that is, right? So I have to come up with a number that each percentage is costing us this, hence I have to justify giving the data team. And once that will be my step one, so I can get faster data. As you mentioned, the data team is fully backed up. I would say it's a product fit. I don't think it's a bug. And what you would want me to do is, let's say we will take your example, it's a new signups, and this is what the data showing the new signups. I think they're the demographic I would know, because when you sign up, I would ask like, one of the most best signups is Spotify.
mm,
That you ask set of questions, right? Like what is your fitness, what age group, all of the data. Even today when I
mm,
sign up, they ask you about all of your gender, everything. Once I get that data, I would then say, okay, in this it looks like these are top 2 or 3 capabilities which this demographic is required based on the competitive analysis.
mm,
I'm seeing its age, let's say 8, not 18 to 35 is too big. I would bring it to its 18 to 25. And I see that the social media is too complicated, the social feed is too complicated for them. There's too many friction. Let's say example, number one, there is a lack of, let's say, tagging someone. I don't know if that capability is there or not. I can tag my buddy. You would want that. I can't build a sub community like groups. This is my
mm,
workout group. This is my running group that
mm,
I want to share. I can't build it. I would say this is what the 2 3 steps I would do, because this is what the market is doing, and this is a, let's say, a hot trend in the market. Can I
mm,
please go ahead and get some engineers? And I need this much engineers. As you said, engineers limited. That's
mm.
how I would communicate a business. And each day I will deploy this. And unfortunately, I'll call my team and say, guys, we're in a war room. We're staying here because you mentioned this is effectively our next funding.
Right, right.
So that's
Yes.
I would do.
Got it. I think that was a very, I think what I learned from this conversation mostly was when you communicate to your leaders, you need to not just communicate, but communicate the impact, communicate the
Yes.
value it is bringing or we
Hmm.
are losing for the users or the
Hmm.
business. And that kind of gets the
Hmm.
stakeholders more
Hmm.
involved and kind of more on your side, and kind of they give you that leverage to kind of, okay, this is the value that we're losing. Now, how do we bring it back? Then you trust your PMs and you give them the resources that they're asking for. I think, yeah, that's the key. And then let's bring this home with one final question. For any early career PM who's stuck in a, like in a real life product challenge, and they think that root cause analysis is one of the techniques that they want to use, what is the single myth or a single advice that, either you can break a myth about root cause analysis, or you could give like a single starting point or an advice of how to best do the root cause analysis?
If there is a problem and if you're an early PM, right? Honestly, I would look at how the system was built.
Hmm.
I'll go to like wherever your documentation is shared, see how the system is built. Number one, right? Number two is find someone who has been in your organization for some time and say that okay, I've done my research on this is what the problem, this how the system is built, and tell me, get knowledge. Tell me that okay, how was the system built? What was the challenge you faced when the system was built? Okay, and that would be my step number two. Then step number three is that if I'm a user, I would go and like build my own user journey and where do I think the pain point is? Because now in step one and two, you have the system knowledge, how it was built, where do you think the friction is? And the solution would be is that I would go ahead and then build a user journey, user flow, and say, okay, this is where I think the problem is. This is where it's happening. Keep digging deep. And if you're in a larger organization, I think systems talk to systems. There's
Hmm.
multiple like systems talking to each other, right? Even something
Hmm.
in, I can tell you in Samsung that when we have the supply chain, we have like five systems till it reaches your home. So one might be
Hmm.
okay in my system, but it might not be okay in downstream or upstream, wherever it is. Follow the data. Always follow the data. That okay, if this happens, does it go to the next system? Does it go? And if there's a break, see why the break. I would say no, like the code. I'm not saying you have to understand coding, but see to the engineer or figure, okay, where is the system breaking, and that's how I would go about it.
Hmm. I think that was a very, very interesting way to think about product problems. First, to really understand the point that you said that systems talk with systems. Now, the systems could be systems within the product that you're
Mm.
launching, or they could be within the organizational units that you're kind of communicating with to get going. And another piece of advice, which, I think is very interesting, hard to follow, but very interesting, is really dig deep enough to know where your data is flowing and how it's flowing through the whole, workflow, and follow that data to kind of do the root cause analysis of, okay, this is okay, layer one, these are my constraints, this is my assumption, let's test it. Layer two, layer three, and you kind of
Yes.
keep iterating with what data is kind of signaling to you. Yeah, I think this was
Yes.
very, very interesting. Do you have any
I think,
closing remarks?
yeah. So one thing I would say as a PM, whenever you're going, think about everything you do, right? Let's say you're using Uber. How would you make it better? Number one.
Mm,
But honestly, PM is purely relationship management.
mm,
Okay, right. You will find solution with more experience, you'll find it. But if you have a good relationship to get along with your team, because you communicate with multiple teams, your own team, design, engineering, data, the business. If you have a good relationship and you're easy to work with, people will always back you up. So it's a focus on relationship building and just get focused on data. I think nothing can challenge data. Just don't build something where I built it. Like, okay, what is the value I'm bringing? What is the ROI? So I think
mm.
those two things I would definitely say is the closing remarks.
Perfect. I think I really want to thank you. This was definitely a master class in product thinking. There were so many different aspects that we covered. A big shout out to how you navigated the whole problem, maintaining your calm and composure. I think that was very inspiring. So, if you're tuning in to this episode and if you've ever launched a feature that did not go as planned, I think let this video and this process be your reminder that don't panic. Basically, zoom out, ask the right questions, and then dig layer by layer strategically. Thank you so much, Sagnik, again for not just sharing your process, but inviting us into it. I think your structured thinking and very nuanced, deep down approach was very inspiring. We are so grateful to have learned from you today, and we hope that this sparks better decisions and deeper thinking for all the product managers who are watching.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated how you did everything. Hats up to you, the way you reached out, every coordinated your timing. Thank you for making me part of your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sagnik. Stay tuned, everybody. Bye.